Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, as you can see, this is obviously going to be a visual podcast because we're going to be having a little fun today because we're going to be taking another one of those political quizzes, but this one I think has a really interesting concept rather than just where do you fall on the political spectrum, but we'll get to that when we get to that. First, let's get right into the news. And obviously, I'm kind of late on this, but, you know, it's a weekly podcast, not a daily podcast, so never going to get some things a little off. So, Bernie or Bust 2.0, Working Families Party endorses Elizabeth Warren, fueling progressive split. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren managed to keep their competition for the Democratic presidential nomination cordial thus far, consistently occupying the second and third positions in public polling behind frontrunner Joe Biden. A surprising announcement this week, however, threatens the rock unspoken alliance that has been exposed what a growing rift in the progressive base. One which will likely ripple on its next year's general election against Donald Trump. Recall that in 2016 there was a bitter Bernie or Bust movement that threatened to derail Hillary Clinton. Basically, it's going to go over the basic stuff like, oh, Bernie or Bust, and people are attacking Warren for the Working Families Party endorsement. But for those who don't know, the Working Families Party is a social democratic, left-wing populist, progressive party, left-wing, that's occupying like New York, Connecticut, Oregon, basically a lot of these states and Washington, D.C. It's a political party that is best known not for really running its own candidates, but for going through fusion voting. Pretty much it will endorse whoever the Democratic nominee is. In 2016, they endorsed Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary, but when the general election rolled around, the Working Families Party endorsed Hillary Clinton because, you know, why wouldn't they? This is pretty much the Working Families Party only way of getting their policies done. They feel that they need to align themselves with who's going to win. And that's, of course, usually going to be the Democratic Party, especially in states like New York. But, like, I've criticized and praised the Working Families Party. Like, first of all, again, I like this right here. These things I like. But I do kind of hate the idea of the fusion voting purely, especially considering the Working Families Party is really iffy on their fusion voting. Let me give you an example. In 2018, they endorsed Cynthia Nixon over Andrew Cuomo in Cuomo's bid for governor. But in New York's 14th Congressional District, they endorsed Joe Crowley over Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, both of these people lost the primary. However, when it was time for the general election, they gave up their ballot line for Cynthia Nixon to give it to Andrew Cuomo. But in the New York's 14th Congressional District, Joe Crowley refused to stay off the ballot, and, you know, his name remained on the ballot as the Working Families Party candidate. It's kind of weird. They do this. I don't know exactly why they do this. I mean, I guess I know why they do this. They just want to be popular, I guess. But it's really confusing because why do it for the actual progressive when the corporatist is just going to roll all over you? It's my whole problem with the idea of the Working Families Party in total. They're pretty much the progressive who's blue no matter who. If you're going to tell the corporatists that you're going to support Joe Biden now, like if you're going to do that now, then they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. Like Cenk Uygur, who's like, oh, I'm just going to endorse whoever's going to win. And Bernie, to an extent, yeah. Like, when they just say, oh, I'm just going to endorse whoever wins no matter what, I'm not going to have a litmus test to say, oh, it had to be this progressive. It's just inevitably going to lead to them going like, okay, so that means we can screw you however we want. And another thing, it's weird, the Working Families Party they had 6 candidates that were running for their endorsement. They were Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, obviously, Bill de Blasio, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, and Kamala Harris. Now, the thing is, Kamala Harris, she didn't participate in their voter thing. They asked all 5 or 6 of these candidates questions, except for Kamala Harris, because she just didn't. So they removed her from the contenders for their nominations. Notice a couple names missing? If any 6 candidates were going to be brought up, like if I was the leader of the Working Families Party, the 6 candidates that I would have considered for the Working Families Party nomination would have been Bernie, Tulsi, Yang, Williamson, de Blasio, and Warren. If anything, like even if you don't even 100% like them, you can at least rationalize oh, okay, I mean, I guess Yang, if you're one of those Yang haters, you're going to be like, well, I mean, I guess you could say he's pitching his UBI to working families, and Bill de Blasio, he's his whole campaign slogan was working families first. And there's been a lot of, all these guys say, they make sense more than Castro, Booker, and Harris is all I'm saying. Now, of course, the biggest contention is obviously they endorsed Warren over Bernie. Now, the thing is, there's a lot more nuances, I guess you could say. You see, I found out, I'm one of the ones who's kind of trying to get them to say, let me see the ballots. I just want to see who voted for who. I want to see the actual percentages. Because the Working Families Party, they've always been these guys have been iffy on the recent totals. Like they say, over 80% of the people who voted in the Working Families Party primary chose to vote for either Bernie or Warren. It's well, I mean, can we have specifics? Was it 60-40 or whatever? You gotta give me specifics. I want to see how many people voted for who. I want the Working Families Party to release their ballots. And the thing is, that could easily just quell any problems. Think about it. The Working Families Party is always saying oh, well, I mean, the party people have chosen Warren. And then we say, hey, can we see the ballots to prove it? They say, okay, here's the ballots to prove it. We go, okay. That's all they have to do. It's all the Working Families Party has to do. That's all they really have to do to show that they're being consistent. That they're actually representing the people. And another call that people have been trying to make is to have them release the ballot of the party members versus the ballot of the party heads, because they apparently had 2 different ballots, and the 2 combined ballots had 60% of the voters be party heads. So of course that's going to lead to some other contentions. Now, the thing that really bothers me about the Working Families Party endorsement of Warren over Bernie is, first of all, Warren, I know a lot of people like to say this, but Warren is just there are a lot of people who say Warren is the second best choice of this race. She's not. Or Warren's the second best senator. She's not. She's not. There are other people more qualified than her. In both of the things that many progressives, even ones that kind of try to not like her that much, Niall Elkin, even him, he usually says oh, Warren's second best senator. And I'm that's where we have to disagree. Merkley's better than her in the Senate. But the thing is, here's the thing about it. Who was putting boots on the ground for the Working Families Party? Not Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders. Because in 2016, when Bernie endorsed Hillary, he specifically asked the people in New York to vote for Hillary Clinton on the Working Families Party line so that they can keep their ballot line. I mean, he's wearing a pin of the Working Families Party logo. Bernie actually wanted the Working Families Party. He was even quoted as saying the Working Families Party is pretty much the only political party that is working to bring his ideology. Why would you endorse anybody except for him? He is the Working Families Party candidate. He should be the Working Families Party candidate, not Warren. Warren just should not even be. She should, if she was in the consideration, she should have been on the lower spectrum of consideration. But anyways, enough about me ranting about the Working Families Party. I mean, I guess that's all I have to say about the Working Families Party, because a lot of people have already given their criticisms and all that. Now going south of the border, Mexico amnesty laws eyes reprieve for minor drug offenses and abortions. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has sent a draft law to Congress that aims to grant amnesty to people serving jail time for lesser offenses, including abortion and possession of small amount of drugs, the government said on Sunday. The amnesty would benefit those in prison for minor crimes, not murderers or kidnappers or those who have caused serious injuries to other person. López Obrador wrote in a preamble to the draft initiative. López Obrador put an amnesty at the center of his strategy to bring down lower levels of violence in Mexico, which have been ravaged by the turf wars between drug gangs for more of a decade, resulting in tens of thousands of deaths. During his campaign, he said that he would explore an amnesty with criminals to pursue a less confrontational approach but to tackling violence, generating expectations it would involve gang members. But the premise remained vague. Sorry, I was tired. I'm tired from the day. So anyways, AMLO. I love this man. This man is perfect. I mean, not perfect, but you get what I'm saying. Let me explain about AMLO for those of you who don't know. AMLO has run for the presidency of Mexico 3 times. 2006, 2012, and 2018. In 2006, he pretty much was like, I'm pretty sure that you guys are kind of rigging the election against me. And then kind of had a ceremony where he swore himself in as the official president of Mexico. I'm not entirely sure if that was 100% true, but I mean, for the most part, but there are a lot of people who showed up, so it was evident that AMLO was at least very popular. In 2012, he did really well again, but in 2018 was the year that shit finally hit the fan. Like, things were getting terrible. Like, we all know the stereotypical idea of Mexico. Drugs, crime, rapists. There's a reason why Donald Trump was able to use they're bringing crime, they're bringing drugs, they're rapists, but some, I'm pretty sure, are good people. Because that's what's going to click in your head when you think of Mexico. You don't think of the rich culture. And the only other thing that you think of, aside from the drugs and the violence and the cartels, is tacos. Don't lie, that's what you think of. AMLO was basically their knight in shining armor. He promised that he was going to end corruption, help the poor, make Mexico great again, for lack of a better slogan. He was going to bring back the platform of one of their most popular presidents, Lázaro Cárdenas. He was going to make it so that Mexico would prosper. He mentioned that his presidency would pretty much be the 4th stage of Mexico's prosperous life, starting with independence. Then there was a war of some kind in the middle of the independence and revolution, and his thing would be the 4th one. And he did it by running a populist left platform that appealed to the Mexican people. And it worked. He swept the floor with every candidate. He was polling like way above every candidate. There was no way you could stop him. And there was actually allegations that someone did try to stop him. There were some allegations that maybe somebody was trying to hack into the election. I think the accusation was Russia, but I don't know. Pretty much people were saying that someone was trying to stop AMLO from getting to be the president. And, as you can see by the headline, AMLO isn't tired. He's working hard. Let me see. I'm gonna pull up the AMLO Wikipedia page. So because he has specific policies that he did in recent times that I think were also beneficial. Okay, so it says here the minimum wage increased by 16.21% under AMLO. Okay, this one might not be the best, but he's been working really hard on a lot of populist left stuff that he promised. And it's clearly working. He's doing well. But the thing is, obviously, with the idea of a Hispanic leftist, it's obvious that somebody's gonna try and take him down. And I think it's pretty obvious who it's gonna be. How do I know this? Well, I don't exactly have the stuff at the moment, but I remember seeing articles of people saying AMLO is crushing Mexican journalism, is ruining press freedoms, and I said something on a social media I know where this is heading, and I know this is kind of conspiratorial, but I'm gonna show you right now. What is the first GIF that is going to pop up when I type in AMLO? What's this? AMLO is on the shoulder of Maduro. Oh no, he's a socialist. You see, that's the thing. That's what he is. That's what they're gonna try and do. They're trying to make it so that AMLO is associated with Maduro so they can take him down. I mean, yeah, it's clearly obvious, especially considering this socialist is right next to their border. I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon there's going to be stories on John Oliver saying he has ruined Mexico or something like that. But I mean, whatever. I mean, it's just whatever. But anyways, the next story is coming from Edward Snowden says that he would return to the U.S. if guaranteed a free trial. Edward Snowden, the American whistleblower charged with espionage after releasing journalists a trove of classified documents. Pretty much, here's the thing that's happening. He's, Julian Assange is trying to sell a new book. And obviously, when you're trying to sell a book on being the most persecuted man in current history for leaking one of the biggest things in American history, it's obvious that, things aren't going to 100% be like, good. And he's been doing, like, a book tour to explain, like, oh, here's what I'm going to do. He's going to explain, like, here's what I did, here's why I'm going to do it, and here's why I can't exactly explain why I would go back to home. Like, he's pretty much going around and saying, here's why I can't go home. Because, well, if he goes home, then they won't even give him a fair trial. They'll pretty much be like I remember he said, like, in a video, like, the only thing I was promised in my, like, when I called the Obama administration, need I remind you, was he wouldn't be tortured. That was the only thing he was promised. This does not seem fair, obviously. And of course there's a lot of people saying, like, oh, you can't do the thing, like, but Edward Snowden went to Russia. He exposed our secrets to Russia. He exposed the U.S. was illegally spying on everybody in America to the American people, and it just so happens that Russia can also read that information. Exactly who is this information giving? What is giving this information do for Russia? Ooh, they know that the U.S. is illegally spying on its people. Ooh. Like, I mean, that doesn't seem like a big deal to me. It seems more pertinent that the U.S. its citizens know that we are being illegally spied on. That seems more like a pressing issue to me. Am I right? But, I mean, whatever. People are gonna say, like, oh, people are gonna still believe, like, he, for some reason, is the bad guy. But he's not. He's the good guy. He even revealed in an interview, like, very bluntly, that whatever you can do on your phone, the government can do. If you can access your nudes, the government can access your nudes. Even if your phone is turned off, the government still has access to all of your stuff. Like, it still does. And it's kind of fucked up, obviously. Which is why libertarians and Greens and other progressive and other activists have been rallying behind us, like, not Assange, but Assange too, but Snowden. It's why I actually agree more with Jill Stein and Gary Johnson on this issue than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders says that Snowden played a very important role in educating the American people and stuff, but I still think Snowden should be punished. Now, I don't think he should be punished. And that's what Jill Stein and Gary Johnson agreed with. They said that they would pardon Snowden, they would drop the charges against Snowden, make him part of the cabinet, but they would not punish him because they're like, he didn't do anything wrong. And here's the thing. Technically he did, but he didn't. Under the U.S. and their smart eyeballs, he did do something wrong. And under the court of law, they would try to make him seem like he did something wrong. Because all they would ask him if he had a trial would be, did you hack into the U.S. and steal documents and then post those documents? He'd have to say yes, because that's what he did. Then they'd be like, no further comment. When in any sane person's, like, life, they would understand that he would, like, you don't just do this for the sake of doing this. You would say, hey, why did you do this? Then you'd give him a chance to respond and say, he would absolutely say, like, the reason why I did this is because the government was wrong, and I don't think they should have been doing this at all. I did it for the sake of the American people. I did it so that the American people would know what the U.S. government is doing behind their back. And the fact that they lied about it, they do this. They do this. He would do this, and then he would win the case. Constitutionally, he would win the case, which is why they don't want him to get a fair trial. Because he would win. Under any court of law, he would win. And that's why he's not going to get a fair trial. Because he'd win. And there's been this whole thing, like, there's been this whole story about, like Trump said something about Ukraine, about, like, hey, would you do something for me? And then everyone was like, oh, a whistleblower revealed what he said, and then they're like, oh, the whistleblower, hooray! And I'm like, really? You're gonna say whistleblower hooray now when you putting Manning in jail, Assange is in prison, and Snowden is in hiding? And they're like, oh, well, I mean, this guy went through the proper government channels. These guys are just hackers, and they stole the stuff. And it's like, stupid idiot. Snowden tried to get through the proper channels. But the thing is, he didn't do it. I mean, he did do it, but they didn't want him to do this. He said, yo, guys, this is fucked up. Why are we doing this? And they told him, shh, no. You have to, we're just doing this because we have to do this. There's no other option. And he had no other choice but to go to Glenn Greenwald about this. He had no other option. This was his only option to get the information out because the U.S. government would not do this. Now, there have been good whistleblowers that did go through the process, like Joe Darby. For those who don't know who Joe Darby is, he's the one who revealed, like, there was a prison in the Middle East that was torturing its prisoners. He revealed this to the press, but he did go through the proper government channels to do this. I think he did both of them simultaneously, so that if it failed, the press would already have the pictures of what they were doing. But I mean, he went through the proper channels. Some can do it through the proper channels and have it work. But there's some people who have to go behind their back. Like the people who released the Pentagon Papers. They had to go behind Nixon's back and have a senator, Mike Gravel, reveal it to the public. There are some people, like Deep Throat. Deep Throat is probably one of the biggest whistleblowers. You think he did it through proper means? No. Why would he do it through proper means? But anyways, I guess that's all I gotta say on that. Going on to Israel. Israel held another election, and it appears the winner is going to be, their new prime minister is going to be Benny Gantz. Now, Benny Gantz is in charge of a political party called Blue and White. Blue and White isn't necessarily the best political party. It's centrist. Obviously, that's a bad sign. There were probably other people that I would have probably wanted to be prime minister, like Ayman Odeh, Nitzan Horowitz, Almir Pertetz. I'm saying this with a Hispanic accent when it's supposed to be Israeli. But the one thing that seems to be obvious is Netanyahu's out because Gantz will not give him a coalition government with the Blue and White. Now, the Blue and White, it appears that the Blue and White is better on the Palestinian issue because they are willing to negotiate with the Palestinian Authority for a peace agreement. And Benny Gantz, he was kind of iffy when asked on the Israel-Palestine conflict let me see. He said he said that he didn't want a one-state solution. He wanted to strengthen Israeli settlements in the West Bank. He said Israel would never leave the Golan Heights. Obviously, there's some bad things, but he did say that he was going to create a Palestinian entity of some sort in the West Bank. So I did assume, Gantz is at least better on the Israel-Palestine issue than Netanyahu. But there's also a Palestinian who sued Gantz for war crimes. Now, I'll leave this in the description below because I don't think I can read through all of this. But it's safe to say that while the situation with Israel and Palestine might get better, it's not gonna be solved. The next story is back in America and something I've been dreading. Joe Kennedy kicks off primary challenge against Senator Ed Markey. Representative Joe Kennedy III of Massachusetts has announced a run for Senate on Saturday morning in the East Boston Social Center, challenging Democratic Senator Ed Markey, who has served in Congress for more than 40 years. We have a Senate that, instead of trying to harness the opportunity and potential of every person in this country, they're trying to pull us back. I am running for the United States Senate to tear down and fight back everything we got. He's basically trying to, here's the thing. Here's a political strategy that I have mentioned before, and I will mention again till the day I die, regarding Joe Kennedy. He is running under the Seth Moulton strategy. What do I mean by this? We all know Seth Moulton, failed presidential candidates and all that jazz. He ran against Joe Tierney for the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District. Now, he ran zero on policy. They ran absolutely 0% on policy. But he was running under the chance of oh, Tierney's an old man. I'm a young boy. Make me congressman because I'm cool. Now, this strategy actually isn't originally from Moulton. I call it the Moulton strategy because Moulton and Kennedy are in the same state, in Massachusetts. But this strategy actually stems all the way back to Eric Swalwell, who ran the same kind of campaign against Pete Stark. Old progressive, young moderate. I'm running to make new ideas and new blah blah blah. But I mean, no one exactly knows exactly the truth about it. It's not like they're obviously doing it just for the sake of oh, I want to be... They want to try and pull what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley and all the other guys did somewhat successfully. Actually running on a platform of being a new face with new ideas. But these guys don't want to do it with actual new ideas. They just want to do it for the sake of doing it. And, much like those other strategies, this is going to be a strange time in American politics because look at Markey's endorsements. Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, Joe Manchin, Ro Khanna, AOC, and look at all these state reps. The PSCC, the progressive base, and the party establishment are working together in sweet unison to try and make Joe Kennedy reconsider. And the thing is, Kennedy, he's not facing this battle alone. He does have some endorsements, but not exactly who you think. Okay, his first endorsement is Kyrsten Sinema, senator from Arizona. No duh, she's one of the biggest moderates in the, entire country. But she's also kind of running on that idea of like, oh, I'm a new face with new ideas. But his other endorsement is Bill Weld. Yes, not some magical different Bill Weld. This Bill Weld. Bill Weld actually fully acknowledges that Kennedy probably doesn't want his endorsement, but he's got it. And I mean, to be fair, Massachusetts Republicans, for a long time, they've always been associated as like business-oriented guys, but they've never been necessarily more conservative. They've always been more moderate. So maybe it will help. And polling does make it seem like Kennedy could replace Markey. But the thing, like, you know how I mentioned, like, the progressive base and the establishment are working together? I mean, the establishment's going to get over it if Markey loses, but the base isn't. That's why I'm making it again official. I already made it known before, but I am, in fact, endorsing Ed Markey for the Massachusetts Senate race. I'm also endorsing all these guys. So if any of these guys interest you or you live in these districts, check the endorsements out. And as you can see, they're not all Democrats. I mean, a lot are, but some aren't. Because I'm not in that realm of political dumbness where I'm like, Democrats are automatically better. But anyways, speaking of bills, Bill de Blasio drops out of 2020 presidential race. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced Friday that he is dropping out of the 2020 presidential race, ending a campaign that failed to get traction amid a crowded Democratic primary field. De Blasio sought to cast himself as the most progressive candidate in a large field of Democrats vying to take on President Donald Trump. And he used his time on the national stage to attack less progressive candidates, namely former VP Joe Biden, for positions that he felt were out of step with the current mood of the Democratic Party. In the end, however, de Blasio was unable to convince liberal Democrats that he was more qualified than Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren or Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. See, they put Warren before Sanders. But the thing is, de Blasio, many people don't realize this, but I've actually been in contact with Bill de Blasio this whole time. And you know why? And you want to know the real reason why de Blasio dropped out? He didn't want my top 5 to change. Because my top 5 was actually so close to changing. I was originally going to, at one point, make de Blasio higher than Marianne Williamson. But it was like, I don't want to make your top 5 change. I'll drop out for the sake of your top 5. No, but in all seriousness, de Blasio just dropped out because I guess he didn't want to run anymore. But here's the thing that is weird. It's very, very weird to me. Out of all the candidates to drop out, who did you expect to drop out more? The guy that has been running for and been in the first 2 debates, or a guy that has yet to make it in any of them? Wayne Messam, he's still, for some reason, running for president. Somehow, I have no clue why, but Wayne Messam is still somehow running. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But anyways, damn it, I forgot the smaller candidate of the day. Oh, well, I guess I'm just not going to do one. I literally forgot it. We might as well remember Wayne Messam, because nobody knows who he is. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just going to jump right into the quiz, I guess, because I just forgot the smaller candidate of the day. Alright, let's go. the LeftValues Quiz, not the 8 Values Quiz, LeftValues. LeftValues is a leftist political quiz inspired by and based on the 8 Values Quiz that seeks to identify your position on the left-wing political spectrum. If you are not a leftist, this quiz is obviously not suited for you. But I am a leftist. So basically, it will judge you based on these categories. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories. Revolution versus reform. Scientific versus utopian. Central versus decentral. International versus national. Party versus union. Production versus nature. Conservative versus progressive. And it will give me the closest match based on whatever my political viewpoint is. It'll match it up to the closest ideology that matches up with me based on the quiz. I found it to be interesting because this is purely a leftist quiz. No right-wingers allowed. So I'm not going to get any, right-wing stuff. This is purely for left-wings. Alright? Let's go. 72 questions. Got it. Reforming capitalist society to achieve better rights for workers is desirable. This is a toughie, technically. Kind of. Sort of. Because, what do you exactly mean by this? When you say reforming capitalist society, do you mean explicitly just making capitalism better? Or does this count if you're a revolutionary socialist? Do you still agree with this? I guess I'll put slightly agree, because I do think technically a social democratic form of government and economy is best. But if I were given the pure option to just scrap capitalism and replace it with socialism or whatever other leftist thing, I'd probably do that if that was my only option. So yeah, I'll put slightly agree. Revolution is the best way to achieving a socialist society. I wouldn't necessarily say that is the best way, because the thing is, with a revolution, you will inevitably put a bad taste in people's mouths over your ideology. If you do revolt, like a pure revolution of killing people or guns a-blazing, you may make people sour on your ideology, because if you're a violent revolutionary, then people might just associate socialism with violence. I'd say I'm more of a reformist, I guess, if that were a thing. I'm gonna guess that I'm more of a reformist, but I mean, it depends on what you mean, political revolution, or I'm going to put slightly disagree because I'm not really a revolutionary. I think we can work through, let me think. We could inevitably vote progressives and socialist-leaning guys in, but of course we'd have to do it in a more obvious, sensible way. So I'll put slightly disagree. The negative consequences of a revolution generally outweigh the advantages. I guess I'd have to put agree with that, yeah. Because I guess that's what I just said. The negative consequences of a revolution outweigh the advantages that it could bring. While a revolution could bring a better place, and inevitably I'm more of a pacifist, I guess you could say. I guess it's really what it boils down to. If I were less of a pacifist, I'd probably be more of a revolutionary socialist. Liberal democracy is a viable way to achieving a socialist society. Yeah, you'd have to do it through a democratic way, because that way your ideology would be able to achieve its likability through more people. If you just revolted, you would inevitably have all these consequences. You'd have all these dead people. You'd have all these problems. Inevitably, if a because you'd be perceived by other governments as more violent. Like, you see this with the Soviet Union. It was seen as violent and revolutionary, which is why they had to take it down. If you go through the ballot box, you're more than likely just going to be seen as a country experiencing its democracy. Again, that's not always going to be the case. Like, some countries that do vote in socialist leaders, they still get blamed as being, like, violent and oppressive regimes, but, I think it could work. Because I guess, inevitably, when I have to say socialist society, I have to also mean, like, social democratic, because that's what I'm in favor of. So I guess I'll put slightly agree. A socialist revolution is made inevitably by the conditions of capitalism. Yeah, technically they're not wrong. A revolution is pretty much inevitable by the conditions of capitalism itself that we have. Inevitably, we will have, a revolution of some sorts, whether it be a political revolution that goes through the ballot box, like with what Bernie's saying, or a violent one with a future Marx or Lenin. Well, Marx didn't technically lead the revolution. He was just saying that he wanted a revolution. So I'll put slightly agree, yeah. Workplace democracy within capitalism is an acceptable alternative to a completely socialization of the economy. Yeah, I guess... I do not believe that the entire economy should be socialized, but I do believe that workers need to be at the table whenever these decisions are made. Like, whenever a trade policy is made, we need to consider how it'll impact the workers. Whenever we need to consider the workers. The workers are inevitably who control the means of production. So notably, they're the ones who should be benefiting the most from any of these decisions. So I guess I'll put... I don't know if I should put agree or... I guess I'll put strongly agree. Revolutionary violence is acceptable as long as the final outcome is positive. Now, again, I'm not really more of a revolutionary person. So I guess I'll have to put disagree on this. Redistributing wealth away from the wealthy through taxes is a viable way of defeating inequality. I personally think, yeah, it can be accomplished. It can be accomplished by a redistribution of wealth through the tax system, especially considering in the U.S. this is all we can do, to an extent, yeah. So I'll put strongly agree on this. Modern social democracy is a betrayal of left-wing views. Obviously strongly agree. Obviously no. Bernstein is my guy. Bernie's my guy. Both of those guys are my guys, so strongly disagree. Oppressed people have the right to engage in a violent uprising when all other options have been exhausted. Now that's a toughie, I guess. Because it is saying all other options have been exhausted. I guess I'll have to put neutral or unsure for this, because I inevitably do not see a system where all other options are exhausted. So I don't think I'm in the best position to say, all other options have been exhausted, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have to put neutral. The means of production, such as factories and farms, must be publicly owned. This is a tricky one. Some of these things you should say, they're not tricky at all. But, they should have the workplace done in a way. This is a thinking one, because you gotta, go through my left-wing stuff to bring my left-wing chops to the table. They should be publicly owned. The means of protection should be publicly owned. Fuck it, I'll have to just put neutral or unsure. I don't know. Because I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. I've never read Marx. I've never read Lenin. I haven't really read anything. I don't read. Material conditions and needs are dominant drive to becoming behind social. Material conditions and needs are the dominant drive behind socioeconomic needs. Material conditions and needs are the dominant drive behind socioeconomic changes. I guess I'd have to put yes, because in a society, if a person needs something, inevitably we're going to change our world so that it can change. Like, if enough people in the world understand that we all need to combat climate change, we'll combat climate change. So I guess I'll put strongly agree on this. Yeah. Socialism can only be achieved in developed industrialized societies. I don't know. Because here's the thing. There have been many people who have brought up the fact that many common societies back in the day were socialistic in nature. Like, think of the Native Americans. Did they have an economic drive to make something? Did they have to buy a teepee? No. If one of the tribe didn't have a teepee, you'd make a teepee for them. So, no, I don't think socialism can only be in highly developed societies. Socialism can be done in any way. That's why, actually, Eugene V. Debs, one of his first strategies was to make socialist colonies in the West, so that he could have his own social society free from the United States. From each according to his ability to each according to his needs is a good principle. Yeah, I already put a... Did I put strongly agree on that? I don't know if I put strongly agree or agree. Because let me remind you what I believe this quote means. That if a person has something, or has the ability to do something, like, let's say, for example, I had the ability to make like I was a carpenter, and then someone, like my neighbor, needed like a doghouse or something, he wouldn't have to go to me and buy my product. Instead, I would just give him the product. I would give him that thing for free because we all got to work together. So I guess this may put me further left, but I guess I'm going to put strongly agree. It is possible to peacefully convince the ruling class to conform to a social society. No. You'd have to force them to. You'd have to do it. You have to force them to do it. Whether it be by revolution or by electing officials that would enforce laws to force them to transition to a social society. So I'll put disagree. Actually, you know what? Let me think. Obviously, you're gonna... I think if I put strongly disagree, it'll make me more of revolutionary, but if it does this, I'll make it more of a reformist, so I guess I'll keep disagree. Capitalism will induce its own demise through contradictions that result in crisis. I don't know. So basically what it's saying is through the problems of capitalism itself, and all of the recessions and the depressions and all that stuff, inevitably capitalism will kill itself. Obviously, that's not the case, because capitalism is alive and well, despite the fact that in the US, it has failed 47 times. Obviously, it hasn't really worked. It hasn't really worked 100% to its desired needs. Like, they want it to be seen like, oh, this is just the perfect system, don't change a thing, but it fails all the time. So I guess I'll disagree, because you'd have to force a transition into a social democratic or a socialist or a communist state, because people will just buy into, no, it failed this time, but it'll work this time. Class conflict is a force that has influenced much of human history. Absolutely. The idea, pretty much everything can be done. Like, a lot of human history has been the poor guy sticking up to, like, the rich guy. Every single political movement has to be done by a group of people. It can't just be a group of elites. The U.S. Revolutionary War wasn't just a bunch of rich landowners. Rich landowners were a part of it, but they also had to get the farmer, the merchant, the sailor to fight against, like, the rich ruling guy. So yeah, I strongly agree. The establishment of socialism is a gradual process rather than an instant and rapid one. Yeah, I agree. Because if you are going to make the U.S. a socialist society, as much as Donald Trump doesn't want it to be, you'd have to transition to it. You can't just be one day like, we're capitalist, we're socialist. You'd have to be like, oh, we're a laissez-faire capitalist. Now we're welfare capitalist. Now we're social democratic. Now we're democratic socialist. Now we're purely socialist. You'd have to do it gradually. That's why there are all these transition periods for all these policies, like Medicare for All. You'd have to transition to it. Society is chiefly driven by individuals and ideas. Well, I know the left doesn't like individuality. I guess I'll have to put... Let me think. Society is chiefly driven by individuals and ideas. Ideas? Yeah, individuals a little bit. I guess I'll have to put... agree a bit. I'm just going to put unsure. I'm not entirely sure. Total economic and social equality is realistically possible to achieve. And nah. Social, yeah. But economic equality isn't really 100% achievable. Inevitably, someone's going to have more power than the other. To an extent, yeah. I understand that you're going to try to make it the best you can. But inevitably, someone's going to make more money than the rest of you. Like, it happens a lot in these socialist countries. Or, I guess, quote-unquote socialist. Because a lot of times they don't even try to be... They try to be socialist for like a day, and then they're like, nah, let's change it to something else to make it so that there's one guy in charge. Someone's going to get more power. Whether it be their dictator, their president, their one person who they deem to be elite. It's not really 100% realistic, at least from what we've seen. Now you could also argue real communism has not been tried. Okay, I guess not. But from what we've seen so far, it technically usually devolves somehow, whether it be through outside forces or inside forces. Whether one guy just decides, I want the power, or another country thinks that the socialist prosperous nation is just too evil and you have to stop it. Because both have been done. Sometimes, like in the USSR, a guy gets a little over his head. And I mean, technically he did do well, but he had pretty much all the power. So I'll put disagree. An economy is generally designed better when it is organized bottom up rather than top down. Absolutely. Organizing an economy from the rich 1% to the bottom, that's a terrible idea. You have to do it through the best way. So yeah, strongly agree. You have to focus from the people. Like, if we focus on how well the richest 1% are doing, who cares? Yeah, the top 1% are doing really well in this economy, but guess what? People have to work 5 jobs just to pay ends meet. Local planners rather than national planners are more efficient at running a planned economy. I guess what they're trying to say is, like, if a person were to run a completely socialized economy for North Carolina, they'd probably do a better job for someone who's doing a fully socialized economy for the entirety of North America. I'll put unsure because I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know some of this stuff. Some of this stuff kind of goes over my head. A centrally planned economy is based around computers is a concept worth investing in. I guess technically our world is inevitably going to be controlled by a lot of computer stuff. So I think it might be essentially planned economy. I mean, I guess maybe. Not entirely sure. Again, I guess I'll have to put unsure. In underdeveloped societies, a centrally planned economy is the best way to make rapid progress. I guess, yeah, in an underdeveloped society, you might want to do it this way to try and make rapid progress. Yeah, I guess technically in this situation, yeah, I agree. The principles of workplace democracy and self-management are desirable. Yeah. I think that the workers should control the means of production. As communistic as that sounds. The workers are in control. They are the ones who do the work. Judging by their name, workers. So they have to be the ones in charge, in a sense. Inevitably, you are going to have some guy who's going to say, I'm the manager, but the power he has to be only, if any, control, like 51-49. Or like 50.5, 50.5. So yeah. The state can be best defined as a monopoly on violence and oppression. I wouldn't necessarily say that. The state is not best defined by a monopoly on violence and oppression. So, it can be defined in a lot of ways. The government is just a way to define it. So I'll put disagree. A highly centralized planned economy is not socialism, but rather state capitalism. I don't think so. Obviously not. Because a highly centralized planned economy isn't really socialism, because socialism is defined as workers controlling the means of production. Special guest Niall Elcom. So, inevitably, I guess I'll have to put slightly agree on this, because maybe it's not the best definition of a highly centralized planned government, but yeah, I guess it's more state-controlled capitalism than like just being socialism. Bureaucracy and inefficiency are always inherent in centrally planned economies. I guess technically a little bit, yeah. So I guess I'll have to agree on that. It is necessary to establish a dictatorship of the proletariat as a transitionary stage between capitalism and socialism. Absolutely not. Nope. We all know where this leads. Establish a dictatorship of the proletariat. The proletariat cannot be a dictatorship. Because I don't know much about these commie words, but the proletariat is supposed to be the little guy, the worker, right? Not the rich guy with the mustache and the hat. The government should be capable of assigning individuals to workplaces. This is where we get into the federal jobs guarantee. Does the federal jobs guarantee count as this? I guess kind of. If you don't have a job, maybe we can guarantee you a job, I guess. I mean, to be fair, the federal jobs guarantee is the only Bernie policy that I haven't really been paying attention to that much, so yeah, maybe, yeah, I guess I'll put slightly agree. A world socialist republic is a realistic and desirable goal. Nah. I don't think you can make the entire world a socialistic nation, I guess. You can't make a socialist world. If you are going to make socialist nations, you're going to have to do it inevitably just nation by nation. So I'll put strongly disagree. Nationalism and patriotism are impulses that are unacceptable in a socialist society. Unacceptable? No. Like, they can be dumb, yeah, but unacceptable is wrong to say. Like, why would you make that unacceptable? Be proud of your nation. Why make that unacceptable? So disagree. The global socialist movement should be led by a single party or organization. I mean, again, I don't necessarily agree with the idea of it, but, and I'm not entirely convinced on the idea of, like, a communist party, per se. I don't think it should, I guess. Disagree. Foreign officials have no right to dictate policy in another country. Foreign officials have no right to dictate policy in another country. Absolutely, yeah. I guess that's one way you can put it, yeah. Open borders between like-minded socialist countries is desirable. Open borders? I guess I wouldn't necessarily say open borders. Open borders. I guess I'll have to put neutral or unsure. Maybe. I guess in this scenario, no. I don't think open borders should be. I think we should always have, like, a pathway to citizenship. We should always have, like, less harsh immigration laws, but I don't think open borders is the best way. So I'll put. Disagree. Any socialist country should be dedicated to exporting their ideology abroad. No, because in exporting their ideology abroad can be code word for let's invade another country to make them socialistic. So I'm going to put disagree because it could, I guess, be interpreted as like, oh, missionaries go into other countries. No, you know what? I'm just going to put strongly disagree on that. People of similar cultures should unite in federations or confederations. Nah, I don't think so. Okay, I'll just be fair. The textbook definition of federation and confederation disagree. The international proletariat belongs to no country. The international proletariat belongs to no country. I guess the idea of a working person across the entire world, in a sense, yeah, I guess I could agree with that. All workers in all countries are trying to do the same thing. Make ends meet, feed your family. Or feed yourself, whatever. National liberation or self-determination of all people is a good concept. Now, let me be clear what this term means. National Liberation Movement is an organization. Let me see. National liberation is a theme in Marxism, especially after the influence of Vladimir Lenin's advocacy of anti-imperialism and self-determination, where peoples became prevalent in communist movements, especially advocating freedom for colonial rule in the Third World. National liberation has been promoted to Marxist and international socialist perspectives rather than a bourgeoisie nationalist perspective. Upon rising to power, Lenin and the Bolshevik government in Russia declared that all peoples have the right to self-determination. While Lenin was critical of nationalism, he claimed that because national liberation was not a matter of chauvinism, but rather a radical democracy. I guess I'll have to put agreeing. I'm not entirely sure of all this stuff. I guess I went too far to the left in the left-wing rabbit hole. But I think all people should be in control themselves, I guess you could say, yeah. I would be willing to sacrifice my economic resources in my home country in order to help those in other countries. Nah, I mean, I don't think anybody really cares about outside countries to an extent. We all kind of want, because I'm more of a non-interventionist, I guess you could say. I guess this is an interventionist thing. So I guess I'll put disagree, because not all the way. I mean, inevitably I do want to help a little bit. But I mean, the way this is wording is like, give away all your money to help starving children in Africa or something. Socialist political parties should participate in liberal democratic elections. Yeah, absolutely. Strongly agree. Even if I don't agree with the Workers' World Party or Party of Socialism Revolution, they should participate in the elections. They shouldn't just purely be revolutionary. They should participate in elections if they're able. Trade unions and workers' councils should form the basis of a socialist society. Yeah, a union and workers' councils. I like unions. I'm a union guy. I'm not in a union, but unions are good. The leadership of political parties and the progression towards socialism will always lead to authoritarianism. That's a good question, because with a party head, inevitably it will lead to them being in control somewhat. But it will inevitably lead to authoritarianism. I guess I'll have to put disagree, because in the United States, leadership of political parties do not lead to authoritarianism. The United States is not an authoritarian society. But I guess you could also say it's because they're bad or something. You could say it's because they're like a lot of you could say they're, what's the word? Oligarchy. Why did I forget the word oligarchy? Anyways, but I guess I'll have to put just slightly disagree. Democratic centralism is an authoritarian organizational structure that disregards the masses. Now, I may seem like a dummy here, but I'm at least acknowledging that I don't know everything. The Leninist organizational system, which policies decide centrally and binding on all members. All the members of the party pretty much... I mean, I guess it's authoritarian in a sense, yeah. Only a mass workers' party can achieve any meaningful long-term goals. Now, I guess you would need a full mass workers' party, but in a sense, I guess I can understand what you're saying. If you have a workers' party, but it's not big enough, it's not going to accomplish anything. You have to have a big party for the workers. So I guess, yeah, I guess you could say, I agree on that, I guess. Mass spontaneous actions are more effective than carefully planned actions. I guess, let me put it into a perspective I can understand. Like, imagine a protest of a certain place. Like, there's a protest for Fort Knox or something. Or they protested the World Trade Center or something. Like, have a carefully planned protest for that rather than, just a bunch of random, protests. I'll have to put neutral or unsure, but nah, I guess not neutral or unsure. The fact that so many workers vote for bourgeoisie parties over socialist parties is proof that party politics is no longer relevant. I'm more of an elections guy, but I guess I'll put disagree because I don't think that party politics can be explicitly thrown out of the way. But you do need to have some on the ground level and some political allies. So I'll put slightly disagree. Socialist organizations are generally better off when the organization is loosely and decentrally. I don't know. How's DSA structured? Is it structured decentrally? I don't think so. I guess maybe, yeah. Hold on, let me look at DSA. See, is it decentralized? I know this probably isn't gonna give the answer. I guess I'll put neutral or unsure because I guess if you have too much centralization, like in the Leninist or Stalinist parties, it could be bad, but I don't know. Trade unionism has been largely corrupted by the ruling class and is no longer a viable structure for social deorganization. Nah, unions are inevitably a good way for workers to, work out in a decent way. Let me look up if trade union is specifically different than a different union. No, it's the same thing. Pretty much the same thing, but it can't be. Trade unions and unions are inevitably the voice of the workers directly. As much as a socialist political party can say, we're for the workers, a union itself is more of a voice of a worker than the Socialist Party of America ever was. So, I wouldn't say they've been 100% corrupted, but they've been somewhat. They've had some bad things. Climate change is a major global threat that all socialists must fiercely combat. Absolutely, 100%. Measures to address environmental issues are unacceptable if they result in significant decrease in the production and quality of life. This is getting to be an iffy question. Like, what's more important? The workers being able to live life normally, or just protecting the environment? So, I guess in the environment, there are some things that are more important to the need. Like, the positives of fixing climate change are a little bit better than the slight negatives that could happen in this. So I'm gonna put disagree. It is foolish to expect renewable energy sources to be able to replace all fossil fuels. No. Industrialized farming practices must be abolished even if it leads to lower outputs. This is factory farming, right? No, not, I guess not factory farming. I guess I'll put nah. Not necessarily. It will be important to implement extensive environmental protections as part of achieving socialism. Absolutely. Experimental, environmentally friendly food sources like cultured meat are worth investing in. Cultured meat? What's that? Never heard of cultured meat. Oh, this is the thing where they make. This is where the thing where they clone meat for food? Like where they clone the animal instead of killing the animal? Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll put agree on that. Yeah. Personal no motor vehicles such as cars should be replaced with free public transport. They shouldn't be replaced per se, but inevitably, I don't think free public transport could replace cars, because it would definitely decrease the amount of cars probably used, but it won't replace them, obviously. So I'll put neutral or unsure, because I don't think I agree with the concept of this question. It is acceptable for humanity to suffer to some notable extent in order to preserve the natural ecosystem. Yeah. I mean, I guess the way the word the question was bad, like suffer. I don't think humanity is going to suffer if we do something environmentally conscious. So yeah, I guess I'll put strongly agree, because we need to fix we need to fix our economy, not our economy, but like our ecosystem and stuff now. Oh no, I guess agree. We must radically alter our food consumption in order to limit the exploitation of nature. I guess a little bit, yeah. Human population growth must be curbed in order to prevent ecological disaster. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, we do need to control our population to an extent, yeah. But it's how you go about doing this. That is the question. We can debate and discuss like how we do this. Some small-scale destruction of nature is acceptable if it notably benefits humanity. I guess a little bit, yeah. Like, only a small amount. If we need to fix the way that it works. Let me explain it in a way that it would probably make sense for you. Tear down one, like, small woods to build a homeless shelter, I guess. I'll put agree, but not strongly agree. Humanity must return to the primitive ways of the past to overcome long-term climate issues. I don't think that's 100% going to be the best way to accomplish this. We do inevitably need to go forward, not back. So I'll put disagree. We must accept that the socialist states of the 20th century failed to seriously address environmental issues. Oh yeah, no, wait, I misread it. I misread it to think of it as a comma. Yeah, all the socialist economies of the 20th century, they failed in addressing these environmental issues, yeah. But to be fair, capitalists, they've failed too. The oppression of LGBTQ plus people need to be a major issue that needs to be seriously addressed. Yeah, absolutely. Traditional gender roles such as women being homemakers need to be overcome. Yeah. Marriage is a patriarchal social construct that should be phased out. No. That's stupid. Why would I agree to that? Abortion is an immoral act that should be banned or significantly limited. No, that's stupid. Religions overall have a mostly positive effect and should remain influential in society. Nope. Ethnic minorities should be considered equal to the majority population. Duh. A socialist government has no right to disrupt religious or cultural traditions in any situation. It depends on the... I'll put neutral or disagree because it depends on it. Like, I'm not going to say a socialist country should tear down all churches and replace them with Stalin museums. But, like, they should... But if it's like... I guess I'll put disagree. I guess disagree. Because we can't just destroy religion. We just have to phase it out of the government. The government can't be religious. Prisons are oppressive and antiquated institutions that need to be abolished. I wouldn't say abolished. They need to be reformed. We need to have a massive prison reform that focuses on rehabilitation of criminals rather than just jailing black people. So I'll put disagree. Mass foreign immigration policies are naive and should not be implemented. Depends on what you mean by that. Mass foreign immigration policies are naive and should not be implemented. Like, what kind of immigration policies? I put neutral unsure because they need to specify this. You cannot achieve a social society without also making significant social progress. Okay, 72 out of 72. Cannot achieve a social society without also making significant social progress. So I'll put strongly agree, and I'm going to close my eyes, and then gonna see what I get. Okay, I'm a reformist. I'm scientific. I'm neutral. I'm nationalistic. I'm neutral on party and union. And my ideology is... ecological nature. I'm a progressive and my ideology is... centrist Marxism. What? How am I a centrist Marxist? Why do I keep getting so far away from social democracy? I never get social democracy in these quizzes, but I feel like I'm a social democrat. I don't get how I get centrist Marxism over democratic socialism or social democracy. I don't think this makes sense. Like, it doesn't even tell me, like, oh, I got centrist Marxism, like, this much. Well, stupid, but I never get it. I never get the ideology that I think I'm going to get. Centrist Marxism. I'll look up centrist Marxism and then read into it, but I don't think I'm a Marxist in a sense. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.